He's angry about mortgages. It's Angry Mortgage. He's swearing. He's cursing loud. He's old. He's opinionated. And he's been doing this so damn long. This program is about mortgages, and this is mortgage advice, but the advice may not apply to your situation. Contact licensed mortgage professionals for specific recommendations before you make decisions about mortgages. You may not agree with Ron, but if you don't, he thinks you're wrong. Oh, and did we say there is a lot of swearing?
And we are back at a repeat guest who is like, I know I often say, oh, love this guest, but the truth is we really do. Okay. The goal of the podcast is to bring smart people with fresh ideas and fresh insights about housing, about real estate, about mortgages, about lenders to the public. And I can't think of anybody better than Anthony Scilipoti, President and CEO of Veritas group of companies, because you can do a bunch of stuff now.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
You're not just analysis anymore.
That's right. We do independent research.
Yep.
We manage money, and we also run a foundation that helps donors make better donation decisions.
Well, tell me about that. I'm not really aware of that one. Tell me about it.
So we write research on the industry.
On the charitable
industry in Canada. You know, it's the second largest employer in Canada.
Come on.
Yeah, you can't make that up. It's huge.
Wow.
Amount of billions invested in
charitable
charities.
works, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and foundations in Canada.
Foundations, yeah. Okay.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so we review, and then so we write research on the sector, white papers, and we also do write research to help people, give people insights on which charities they should invest in.
And so there is just this massive.
Notice I said invest.
Invest, yeah, okay.
Because
right.
I consider it that way. We don't, when we invest with our brain, but we donate with our heart.
Sure.
So we're trying to bring those two together and offer a platform that lets individuals and organizations do that better.
So to collapse it down to like Butler speak,
yeah,
there are some shitty charities. Is that fair? Is that a fair statement?
I think that's. Some would be there are a select number that may be more poorly run than others,
and radically poorly run.
Yes, with poor governance and so on.
Yeah, okay, gotcha. But I'm sure you're constantly running into surprises in your analysis of these things, foundations and charities.
A little bit,
yeah,
a little bit.
Or you've been doing it so long you're not surprised anymore.
It's been this year's 25 years that we've been going. Yeah, just almost about when you were born.
Yeah,
and that we started doing this, and it's just amazing. It started out with a crazy idea that we were just going to tell the truth about what's going on with public companies, and it's morphed from there. And we have 25 employees, and really proud to be making a difference in capital markets. And of course, real estate is a big thing for us. We're coming up this year. You're going to be part of our 13th annual Great Canadian Real Estate Conference.
And it really is great.
Yep.
It's a great conference. It really is. It's one speaker after another of concentrated real estate information as it applies to both investment and to the public domain.
That's right.
What's going on? It was just going on in the industry. It's a terrific conference. And that, boy, bad foundations. I guess there are. I'm always looking for the bad stuff. I mean, I realize it's not normal. But
it's not that we call out companies that we're concerned about their accounting, corporate governance, cash flow, and so forth. But on the charitable side, we're not looking to call that out. We're more so saying, look, you want to donate to let's say food banks. Well,
sure.
You know what?
Yeah. These
These food banks operate better than these food banks. So that's
okay.
the idea.
Okay,
It's
good.
not to single anyone out, because oftentimes charities are maybe doing things that they don't even realize is not the best governance, is not the best way to operate. Once they're shown, because what we'll do is we'll also, we'll work with those charities to get better.
Fascinating. That's fascinating. So you're right. Anybody who's donated to food banks would want to know who's the most efficient and effective and
there you go.
Distributes the most food, bang for your buck. Sure.
Exactly.
Of course. Yeah, you'd want to know that. By the way, food banks in Canada are a pretty big deal now.
Oh yeah, the usage has gone up dramatically,
Yep.
like by multiples.
Yes.
And in fact, we do two food drives a year, one in the spring and one in the fall, because of that.
No, it's distressing, really, what it is. It's something you can call it.
And it ties to everything we see around us. These are like the cracks that are forming everywhere, and yet there doesn't seem to be any problems.
Yes, you need two huge themes. Income disparity,
Yes.
huge theme, biggest theme. And like you said, not a lot of people paying attention to it on an ongoing basis. It's mentioned. Politicians mention it sometimes. Columnists mention it sometimes. People like me mention it sometimes. And you mention it.
Yep.
But it's not a compelling theme that we hearing about daily, but it is very, very important, and it is growing, and it's impactful. And just to your point, on the housing side, I'll never forget this. One of the best, this is going back a few years, one of the best, most intense studies ever done. You know, if you do a study out of a university, this is done out of UCLA, if you do a study and you interview 38,000 people, that is a ridiculously big study. Right?
Sure.
That is huge. They interviewed 38,000 homeless people in California.
Wow.
Which, by the way, California whole contains 48% of all the homeless people in the United States.
Is that right?
They're in Well,
And the population is almost as much as all of Canada.
if you live outside, you'd want better weather, right?
For sure.
So, California makes sense. And the fascinating part was how we tend to assume that people fell into mental illness or there was drugs involved or something. But what they found out through this incredibly broad study was that about 40% of it was a result of not being able to afford to live in a house. That you went from owning a home, something happened in your life, renting a home, living in your car, and then finally unhoused.
Yeah.
It was not, and then when you were unhoused, you had a good reason to start taking drugs.
And look at how many tents. We have these tent cities that sprung up across Canada.
Yeah, and yet when you and I were kids, I'm much older than you, I agree. But when you and I were young, we're quite a bit younger. When we were going to university,
Yeah.
you never saw this. There was always a part of town where there were people, unfortunate people, were passed out on the street. That
sure.
always exists. There were no tents at every bypass. Every time you drove past a bridge, you didn't see tents.
That's right.
When we were in our 20s. That did not happen.
And you didn't see people walking hunched over.
Yeah, all that stuff. Okay, so
Scary.
It's a very different world we have now, unfortunately. One of the real estate oriented things that I love about Anthony is maybe one of the very earliest calls in Canada on Condo Crazy Town. Okay,
Yep.
you were there. You were there, what, 15 years ago?
Yep.
And you've stuck with it ever since.
So it was around 2010, 2011. And at that time, we went out and did a condo mystery shop. And
So you just walked in like you were a buyer.
We took our clients and pretended that we were going to buy it because you got a 10-day period to give it back.
Sure.
And so, we pretended, that we were different. One person's going to buy it to live in. The other person's an investor and so on. It was 6 of us at the time that went out. And we learned that, all you do is you need a piece of ID with a picture that looks similar to you. You need to put a signature on the paper that matches the signature on the ID.
Yep.
You need to give a $5,000 check. And if you don't have a check, they'll create one for you, a cashier's check, right? Mm-hmm. And you're ready to go. That's it. Sign the contract that says you're going to committed to pay the balance of the 20% over the next 24 months. And there you go. There was no credit check. There was no mortgage pre-approval. There was no identity attention going on. And so we said,
just a driver's license is not really intense.
How would this continue when already we were noting that, price to income didn't make sense, price to cash flow didn't make sense. And yet, here we are, 14 years later. We're doing this year our 13th year of the real estate conference.
And it took all this time, but the general insanity that you observed, like stuff that didn't make sense economically makes sense, okay? It took incredibly long time to come true.
Yeah.
And now, of course, it has come true bigly, as Trump would say, bigly come true. Like unbelievably true. But it took that long. And you you had a suggestion of why it took that long.
Yeah, and I'll never forget when we started doing this thinking around 2010, 2011. There was a gentleman, and I've tried to remember his name, but he used to be on the board of CMHC, and this is a time when CMHC was a plumber, a concrete guy, a builder that was on the board of CMHC.
Yeah, they were not just policy wonks.
No.
They were real people involved in building homes.
That's correct, which it had its own problems, but that's how it was. And, I showed him all our statistics and the analysis that our guys had done. We're forensic accountants. That's how we do research. It's all numbers. And so I was saying to him, look, for these reasons, it doesn't seem sustainable. And he says, Anthony, there are only two things that matter to real estate. And one is interest rates, and the other one is unemployment. And if you look since 2010, unemployment has been benign. And
interest rates
have gone to zero.
Yep.
And so, there's been, the odd supply-demand shock. There's been more immigrants, less immigrants. There's been, unemployment that came through because of COVID, which was not the same unemployment that you normally have. It's like go home.
You could make more money at home, though.
That was the other amazing thing.
Yeah.
And so what that leads me to believe is that we were early, or at least concerned, but not necessarily focused on the right drivers of what hits real estate. And so that's why when we look at the situation now, we see that interest rates essentially have gone from near zero. And today, you have your 5-year mortgage sitting at around 4%, 4.5%. And so you also have unemployment that's up from, the likely around 4.5. Today we're sitting at 6.9 roughly. And so therein lies the pressure.
So where we're sitting right now in the city of Toronto,
yep,
the GTA manages to run about just under 10% unemployment right here.
I just took Canada-wide.
No, you did the right number. We should use averages. Because
No, but this is one of the reasons why, again, and we've talked about this many times, real estate is very local.
Totally local.
As is the unemployment, as is the employment. Yep. So this ties to all the things where we are right now. So we have these stresses in high interest rates, higher interest rates, and higher unemployment. All you need is what's going to make that number, the unemployment, come under pressure. And if you have no housing starts, which is where we are right now, then eventually when the current housing production gets finished, if there's not a new hole to drill, window to put up, construction footing to put in, or cement footings to put in, what are these guys going to do?
Well, we ran into something interesting. I don't even know if I had a chance to pass it on to you. But as you know, the developers of these, when you start a condo, you're on a condo tower.
That's
you're
correct.
on a 5 to 6 to 7 year journey. Okay.
Yep.
And what we've determined is, and there's like 4 or 5 big ones, right? There's 4 or 5 companies that build a lot of condos.
For sure.
Okay. And there's some small ones too, but we have recently discovered what's happened with the 4 or 5 big companies because there's no more condo starts. There hasn't been a new hole dug for the condo for 16, maybe 17 months. Okay. Just none. All right. But there's still cranes in the air. So what we found out was that in recognition of the fact that there's no more new holes in the ground, the condo developers when the condo finishes, they've taken the construction crew that's on the finished condo and they've sent them over to the one that they're building to speed up the completion and to keep them working. So now we're going to have a real double whammy when those final condo towers complete at the end of next year. It's going to be a bubble, a bulge of people becoming unemployed.
And this gets magnified because if you're a employee or a worker in construction, you've made good money in the last 10, 20 years plus.
100%.
Just doing your job.
Absolutely.
So you probably have some extra money. What do you understand well? Well, real estate. So what have you done? You've given money to a MIC. You've bought a rental property. You've done your building on the side and doing renovations and flipping.
Yeah, some of them have done that, yeah.
And so now, if they don't have a job to go to, all these other problems start to creep up.
All true. But that man who sat on the CMHC board, or I'm guessing he's a man, could have been a woman.
It was a man.
Who made that classic observation.
Yep.
That if interest rates are low, unemployment is strong.
Or employment is strong.
Employment is strong, yeah, and interest rates are low.
Yep.
You'll be surprised how long real estate keeps going.
Yeah, and as we were talking, in the prep, it's like you look at what happened in 2015. We were both at that time. I think that's around the time I first met you.
Yes, that's about it. Yes,
we were both amazed. We thought, okay, oil price collapses in 2014.
Mm-hmm.
Shale's taking over. Canada's in a box. There's no way to go out here because the main source of our nation's revenue is oil. And so if that goes, we're done. What does Polos do? And bless him, he did the right thing. He cut rates dramatically.
Yep, it's all true.
And that saved us in 2015.
And a strange conversion of events was probably the biggest year, 2015, the biggest year of foreign buyers grabbing up real estate in first in Vancouver.
Yep.
And then they finally brought in a local foreign buyers ban or severe restrictions.
Yep.
And then they all moved over to Toronto. And in 2016, the prices in Toronto went batshit nuts.
Yep.
Okay. And so the country finally put in a ban eventually, a foreign buyers ban. So,
but it wasn't a ban. It was more like high foreign buyers tax.
All that stuff. Yeah. Just restrictions.
My favorite, because we did these mystery shops all across Canada. So we did mystery shops around 2015, 2016 in Vancouver.
So you were going into that sales office, showroom, as you're buying a condo.
Yep. And it was in the Concord Center there. You can still see it. Now they're all finished. That whole area, all around the Rogers Center where they play football. Mm-hmm. And I went in and I, was the only foreigner there.
Sorry, so let's just call it for what it is. Anthony was the only person who looked like Anthony.
Right. It was generally all Asian in the buyer's office, and I went up waiting to find someone who'd talk to me, and really no one wanted to serve me. And finally, I found a woman who would speak to me, and I asked, what's the price? Because there was no listing of price. And she said, well, what do you want, one bedroom? Anyway, long story short, she has a list. We got about 8 left. Here's the price. I said, oh, okay, so let me see. What's that per square foot? How many square feet is that? She sighs, then we do the calculation. I said, so it's interesting. What do you think I could rent that out for when it's finished? And she looks at me like I'm crazy, and she says, you're not from Vancouver, are you?
Nobody's renting it.
By the time this is finished, sir, it's going to be worth so much more. It doesn't matter.
You just sell it.
But why is that? Well, look, it's Vancouver. There's beautiful sun. There's fantastic weather. There's great, health care. There's education. The
world is coming. The world is coming here.
Everybody's moving here. This is the place.
I
said, wow.
Yeah. You don't think about the rent, sir.
I should have bought it.
Yeah, you would have made money. You would have made money.
Each of these years, in the first 6 years or so of our real estate conference, we included the mystery shops. Mm-hmm. Had I kept those condos, I would have done all right.
You would have done great.
Better than I've done right now.
So, of course, there's some famous lines about the idea that, you're probably right, but it's too soon. I mean, that's a uniform tale in the investment business, right?
And I've learned that being early is just as bad as being wrong.
Oh my God, is it just as bad as being wrong? So, it might be worse than being wrong.
It's one of I got 10 rules of investing, and that's up there. I have the top 4 are the most important, but that's right up there that you learn that. And the other thing to learn about being an analyst is that being negative always sounds smarter than being positive.
Oh, yeah.
Because when you're negative, you're based on facts. You're based on trends.
You're based on numbers. You got numbers.
And numbers sound smart.
Yeah.
Whereas if I'm selling you that agent who was, doing in retrospect, how she sold me that condo, she ended up being right. By the time who was saying, by the time it was finished in 2020 and 2019, it was a 50% up.
So her whole approach was, shut the fuck up and sign.
Well,
okay?
no, but also when you sell a future, you're selling a dream.
Of course.
The numbers are just fantastical.
Yeah.
Because there is no backing for them. And so that's why being negative always sounds more smarter. And that's why I've always now tempered that and tried to look at, okay, what's going to be the driver of this negativity? And that's why when I look at the real estate market now, I'm concerned that if the housing starts don't come back, then what are all those working in construction? And we got about 10% of our Canadian population working and doing something related to construction
or to real estate.
To real estate, that's correct.
Yeah.
And I'm talking whether it's the brokers, the agents, but also selling appliances, putting them together, repairs, all that stuff.
Property management, you name it. It's huge. It's damn well huge.
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, to your point, that is the crazy part about all kinds of prediction. And the crazy part about people's trends and what they do when they buy things is so much of it is just rear view thinking.
Yes.
This happened in the past, and my buddy did really well, and my cousin did really well, and maybe I did really well. So let's just keep going.
And that's how it's happened. And what happens is, if one guy's right one time, you go, it's not a big deal. But then what we've learned is basically since 1991, right? The last time there was a real correction.
A real correction, yeah.
Okay. Look at every 5-year renewal since then. You got 30 years, right? So you got 6 renewals of 5-year mortgages where each time you were an idiot for not buying more house, not buying 2 houses instead of 1 house.
Or borrowing more.
What I mean, not borrowing more. Each time you were dumb.
Yeah, and of course
and you got to keep up with the Joneses.
Yeah, you have to.
Johnny made money. You got to go home and listen to your family look at you like.
So now we've finally reached the point where we're right.
Yeah, but Ron, it's really interesting. We're calling the conference this year The Reckoning.
The Reckoning. I love it.
And the question is it? But it's a reckoning question mark.
Yep.
Because while there are a lot of negative things going on, okay, we're not seeing unemployment take off. We're not seeing the defaults that we expected. We're not seeing the massive layoffs from companies. TSX at all-time highs, S&P 500 near all-time highs. Everything looks fine. We got the bond market. The high-yield bond spread today is near all-time lows. So there's no risk. No one's worried about any risk.
Well, I often say online, my response online to things is patience. I know we've been patient on the real estate side. We've been looking at something that makes no sense based on the numbers for a long time.
But again, it can continue to make no sense because interest rates and unemployment staying in line, and therefore things can continue.
But I think there's a couple of levels to this on the condo side. On the condo side, mispricing just got so far off.
Totally.
That it's not manageable anymore.
The pre-sales that they were trying to blow out in 2023, 2022, that were, 1,800 to 2,000. I remember going and doing mystery shops at the One and the units down on Davenport there. They were trying to, sell at, as I said,
$2,000
Mercer,
$2,000 a foot. Yeah.
And I'm looking at these things going, this is not going to work. And you show up and they're giving you champagne and there were lineups. I remember the Saint. The lineups of people that wanted to buy these things.
Yeah. So like that, the extreme price levels on what's essentially a 5-year future, that's gone. Like those guys are all in terrible trouble. I think it's fair to say that there will be $50 billion lost. Somebody's going to lose $50 billion. Okay.
Some big number. Maybe it's 50, maybe it's 100. I don't know what it is.
I'm just going to say 50.
Sure.
Okay? So we're trying to figure out who's going to lose. Now, obviously the guy who bought the place for $2,000 a square foot.
Yeah, unfortunately.
They're going to lose.
Yeah, and there's personal recourse, so very hard to walk away.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's going to be chasing. There's going to be litigation. We're
going to be having a lawyer speak this year about all of that.
Oh, vital.
Yes.
Vital to have a lawyer talk about
this.
He's
a litigator on real estate. And his stories,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. There are stories. So we know that the human beings who bought at these not very rational prices,
Yes.
they're going to take a tremendous hit.
Yes.
They're going to lose their deposit. They're going to lose more. They're going to be litigated. It's going to be a mess. So we know that probably, if we just use that round number, 50 billion, we know those guys are going to take a hell of a hit. Who else takes a hit? Let's run it down. Who else takes a hit?
So I think these asset managers and mortgage investment corporations that have been set up, where they took money from investors and then invested that either in the site development, in the mezzanine debt, to the early construction. I think they get hit really hard.
So private lending corporations who fed money to these condo developments.
Yep.
Okay.
And you've seen that. I mean, already there seems to be no problems going on. And Romspen, the largest or one of the largest, gated, right?
Well, they've been gated for forever.
A couple of years.
And no sign of change.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And yet they still advertise.
For new investors, really?
Yeah,
wow.
It's amazing.
That's amazing.
And so I think those groups get hit, and many of them have taken equity and then borrowed against that, and then used that to lend into real estate.
Of course, yeah.
So now you have those individual investors that have invested there; they get hit. Developers get hit for sure, okay, because they were keen to sell to foreigners. And if they sell to foreigners, well, there's no personal recourse to someone who's sitting in China. How are they going to find them? How are they going to find them
they're
in
not
Dubai
finding them.
or wherever they are outside of Canada?
No.
It's going to be very difficult. So that's going to be a problem.
Yeah.
And then we know that the banks are going to get hit to some degree because they've already been doing the blanket appraisals.
Oh,
I mean, you've been championing, commenting about that, and our friend Pasalis, of course. And so we look at that situation. That proves if the where the bank wants to shift from a construction loan of $500 million into $501 million mortgages, it's just good risk management.
That's all it is. Yeah.
And so that means they knew they were going to potentially take a hit, and so it's easier to do the blanket appraisal. So when it all boils down, though, the banks are not going to come out unscathed. But when you're looking at the size of their balance sheet, if they lose $1 billion, it's not a big deal. But if the private lenders end up losing $10 million on their $100 million MIC, that's big.
That's 10%.
You got it.
It's gone. It's evaporated. Right. So thank you, Anthony. That is such an important point. We have so many people in the audience in social media who are always harping on the idea that banks are going to the banks are going to be in trouble.
Yeah.
For this thing here, the banks are not going to be in trouble.
Well, look, the banks. I don't think the banks end up getting hurt because of mortgages. Okay?
Right.
Because mortgages, as you pointed out, many mortgages, many individuals don't have a mortgage.
Yep. A lot of houses.
Houses don't have a mortgage. So there's going to be some hit, but the real hit is when the mortgage comes under pressure, what does the human do? Well, they stop paying their credit card.
Oh, yeah.
They stop paying their line of credit.
Yes.
They stop paying all their other unsecured debt. They might stop paying their car last and least.
Oh, they quit paying their property tax a long time ago.
So when all of that starts to happen, that's where the bank loses.
Yeah.
On those books. Okay. And so that's where we're really looking to see if there's any strain. Mm-hmm. We haven't, mortgage delinquencies are up, but meaninglessly. Credit losses on the mortgage books, not meaningful. Credit card books starting to become elevated, the credit losses there. So we're starting to see early signs of trouble, but not yet. But that's where I would say you're going to see the trouble.
No, you made a great point about those kind of mid-level lenders that were not institutional.
That's correct.
That made bank. They did well. They did very, very well.
Oh, yeah.
Really well. And there's going to be some pressure now, for sure.
Because everybody in the real estate that is doing higher risk lending knows that it's higher risk, so they charge more. But they don't want to be there forever. It's like a hot potato. I'm in this deal because I want to get it. I want to get out of this deal eventually and be able to find another organization to provide the funding.
Yep, 100% true.
And so if the house price stops going up, it's very difficult to refinance that with someone with an organization that may be at a lower rate or is willing or sees the situation at lower risk, because it's not lower risk. If the price doesn't move, then the loan to value is the same. The risk didn't improve.
The theoretical loan to value is the same. Yes,
that's correct.
Yeah.
But then you add the whammy to that, where the appraisal comes in lower than it was 5 years ago, and now you got a problem.
So that's sort of, it's incredible how long it's taken to get to this point. Because you just were quite correct in saying we had this huge jump from where people had you get a mortgage for 1.79.
Yeah.
That ratcheted up to a number in the sixes in a very short period of time.
Yes.
6.19, that only took about 16 months. We were there. Okay.
Yeah.
And then it started coming down again fairly soon. Fairly quickly, it started coming down.
Yeah.
Now, it appears that it stopped. We actually got all the way down to 379, 384, and now it's back up to 4.25.
Yeah.
And so we might see how that little effect would be. But to your point, there is now a true reckoning and it took time. It took a long time because it's only today that we're seeing really massive hits in some of the outlying regions. Like, separate the condo crisis out. Separate that whole pre-construction condo thing out. We're finally seeing crazy price adjustments in parts of 905 and other regions. We're finally seeing in Niagara, which made no fucking sense to me whatsoever. Like, why in the name of Jesus would the price of houses in Fort Erie go up 50% in 1 year?
Yep.
Like, that was ultimate COVID craziness.
It's called liquidity.
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
When liquidity is available and people can get access, price moves.
But remarkably, those people in Fort Erie have discovered they don't want to fucking be in Fort Erie anymore. Okay.
Because now they got to get back to the office.
Yeah, they got to go back to the office, whatever the fuck's going on. And the reverse is true. Lack of liquidity and lack of interest in your market will blow you up. Because I think we're right back to 50% down in some of those outlying areas.
Liquidity is like oxygen.
It is.
You don't know how much you need it until you don't have it.
So yeah, we are in those far 905 far-flung areas.
And here's here's what I think I want to make sure, because I know a lot of the people here listening, and they're going to say, "Oh my God, these guys are so negative. I'm scared." What I think you got to understand is real estate is a very illiquid market.
Totally.
So if I look at a housing market and I say there's 100 houses in the entire market, okay, if then they're all priced at $1 million. If one sells at $1.1 million, all 100 are worth $1.1 million.
That's the theory.
But if one sells for 900, all 100 are worth 900. So you sit there and say to yourself, "Oh, that's terrible. We're down, honey, 100,000. What are we going to do?" Well, it's like, no, that was just someone that needed to get out. Does that mean your house is worth 900? Maybe if you want to sell it right now, probably. But if you don't need to sell it and it doesn't matter and you love living there, don't look at the price.
It's true. If you can comfortably make your payments,
yes,
it's meaningless to you.
Right.
The biggest thing about real estate is when you're taking an absolute shit kicking in the stock market.
Yes.
The urge to panic is very present. Like, I got to get out of this thing. It could go to zero.
And the other point is the price moves so quickly in the real estate, in the stock market, because there's always a bid.
Always.
It moves very slowly in the real estate market because there's no bid.
Yeah.
Right now, it's the buyers don't want to buy and the sellers don't want to sell because everybody doesn't believe, or nobody believes the price.
So to your point, it's an excellent point. If you can make those payments, it doesn't matter what the price, how far down the price of the house is.
I've given so many, lectures or presentations to investors, and everybody wants to talk about stocks. They want to talk about real estate. That's what they want to talk about.
Sure.
And especially in Canada, everybody that's gotten rich, many that have gotten rich from real estate.
Totally true.
And so I tell them, if you got to buy a house that's going to make your kids happy, your husband happy, your wife happy, you brings in the in-laws, whatever you need to do, and it needs to happen now, then just buy it.
Yeah.
because the benefit you will get from that investment, if you want to call it that, will be tremendous. Whether it falls in price by 10 or 20% or 30% doesn't matter.
The benefit to your life.
Correct.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
But if you're looking today to make an investment because you want to make money, okay, then you need to get a pencil, sharpen it, and you need to sit on cash. And when you want to buy something, you got to say, how much do you want? $1 million? I'll give you 800 Monday.
So that is such an important point, and it really is illustrated when I talk about these disastrous price reductions.
Yes.
These outlying regions from central. By the way, central Toronto seems to be fine.
Yes.
Central Toronto, we might, prices might be down 3%, 4%, 6%, whatever. Yep. It's not, again, not condominiums, but but they're not meaningfully down. Okay.
No. But there's still very few transactions taking place.
Hardly any. Okay. And the far reaches, to your point, again, it's only when you have to sell. When we look at the people selling those places for 40, 50, 38% price drops.
Yes.
It's power sale. It's somebody who had to sell.
It's someone who had to sell because they lost their job, because they couldn't make the payments for whatever reason. Maybe there was a marital situation. But it's typically some unfortunate factor that led to that. And so if you don't need to sell, you shouldn't panic.
But also to support your point, if you sold that house for 50% off the peak in 2022, March of 2022,
yeah,
that is the comp for the neighborhood now. That
That's
is what all the other houses are worth in the neighborhood now.
And so, and especially, look, if for those that are listening that have cash, that are sitting on wealth, they shouldn't be afraid right now. They should be getting excited. Because you make money when you buy things. Because you know that 2 years ago, the price was 20, 30% higher. So you know, and you can see that, and you realize that the reason why it's come down is for these factors. Some of those factors may remain, but it's unlikely that they'll remain forever.
Now, that said, in real estate, again, you make a great point, illiquid.
Correct.
So you might have to understand you're going to wait for 9 years.
In 1991, they had to wait 10 years.
10 years
to get back.
10 years to get back. So let's just there will be opportunities for sure, but they might not have the instantaneous result you might hope for. They might be a longer term result.
And one other thing I'd point out to watch out for. So we're paying a lot of attention to unemployment, but unemployment leads to what happens in rent. There's still a significant number of renters in across Canada.
100%.
Right? So if the rental rates go down,
which they are,
that puts pressure on landlords. Because the cost of, we just talked about, my utility bill, I just got the notice that it went up 3.75%, and yet I can only increase my rent to my existing tenant by 2%. You'd think that these government agencies or groups within the government would speak to each other and understand and use the same inflation rates, but they don't.
No, they don't care.
So that puts another strain on the landlord. So we could see sales take place just because there's not enough cash flow coming in from rental.
And because the real estate market is bizarrely slow and new construction is essentially frozen in so many regions, we have no land transfer tax income coming in.
Bang.
And we have no development fee income coming in. Now, you weren't supposed to use the development fees to feed general revenues, but by the same token, you're noticing less cash every day.
Yep.
Which leads all kinds of municipalities, cities, and towns to think, we might have to raise the property tax here.
And we've seen that.
Yeah, we've seen it, sure.
We've felt that pretty hard.
So
thanks, Olivia.
So that's another sort of wound to landlords.
Like you look at, and then this is a wound that gets magnified because then the city of Toronto doesn't generate enough revenue to meet all the things that it needs to meet, the services, etc. The city of Vancouver, same sort of thing, and then it scales up to the province and so on.
Just to finish off on condos, you had an amazing experience. You were out in Vancouver recently, looking at situations in condos in Vancouver that absolutely won't work.
absolutely won't work. We did a mystery shop with Steve Saretsky, of course.
Good friend Steve, yeah.
Good friend Steve. And Steve, this year he can't be at the conference, but I'm going to be doing a fact finder on my podcast with him over the next couple of weeks as a prelude to the conference. But we went to go visit the Butterfly. And
that's a development in Vancouver.
That's a huge development in Vancouver. Yeah. And what it exposed was properties were being purchased at near $5 million. Wow. Now, look at the math on this. This is a foreign buyer. They have to pay 20% property land transfer tax.
1.2 million
as a foreign buyer. No, 1 million because it's 5 million.
5 million, 1 million. Yeah. Okay.
And then they had to pay, and then there's the normal property tax. So in and around 1.3 million total, the land transfer tax, just taxes.
Okay.
This same units are listed at and trading at less than 4 million.
Like 3.8, 3 point something.
And they're not moving. This is a lot of
So we haven't had price discovery yet.
We haven't had a lot of price discovery. And these things are closing now.
Good Lord.
So the thing is, so does that mean that, someone in North Van's house is worth less or that condo that was built 10 years ago is worth less? Maybe. But more importantly, what will make it be worth less is the psychology. So it's probably still held its value because it didn't have the surge in value that came from this pre-construction of the Butterfly, for example, and these sort of mega projects that have been built in the last sort of 8 years or so. But what'll end up happening now is if you try to sell your property, even though nothing has happened in your building or in your neighborhood, because the psychology in the market's different, you're probably going to have a hard time selling it for what you thought it was worth 2 years ago and prior.
Which is the reasoning behind this incredible growth in resale inventory in the condo side.
You got it.
Yeah, it's just that whole...
We got months of inventory sitting at 6 months, right? And so, am I getting that's a number? That's what we're thinking about.
That's a number.
And so that's kind of we're getting to the point we were at in the early '90s, and so that makes you nervous.
And to be fair, if you're really priced wrong, that property could sit for a year. For the very badly priced properties, you have to be committed to price reduction to get. Now, again. In certain areas, it doesn't need to be that much price reduction, but it needs to be some. You're not going to get what you got in 22. As simple as that. So that brings another interesting thing that you've just recently returned from a trip to China, I believe.
I did, yeah. I was in China. I landed in Beijing, and then I went to Wuxi, which has the highest per capita GDP in all of China.
Wow.
It's a hub for tech companies and the manufacturing. And then I also visited Shanghai.
So it just briefly touch on this. So a lot of people I know do visit China. Yep. And I've had, interestingly, a couple of them in the last year. And one of them just there now. And the constant refrain is the West has lost the race in China. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, and I went at the I was not sponsored, but supported by an organization, Guolian Securities, and because they're on an accounting, their chairman's on an accounting committee. I'm on, and I chair at the International Accounting Standards Board, and. The mission of the purpose of me going there was really to learn about what's going on in China, and I was brought around by analysts and portfolio managers. So this, well-educated, knowledgeable. Some had studied in U.S. And then I also went and was able. I also met people. Like I experienced a tourist experience,
Sure.
And so I visited companies and so on, and. What I think the key to think about for where China is today is, what started out were partnerships between China and Western OEMs. Mm-hmm. Today, China is all about independence. And it all starts, it's nice they're all in electricity and they want to electrify and all that. And I think the real reason is because the main thing they need from outside of of China is oil. And that means that their main, transportation is the key. And so cars working on oil, that's internal combustion engines, we call those ICE vehicles. If they can not use ICE vehicles, then they don't need as much oil.
But they do need coal.
That's fine, but they produce coal themselves.
And they buy a lot of coal too. But
Sure.
The story is always the same. Like, we'll see relatively stupid people make the case that China is, they're all going in on renewables. But the truth is, they're the biggest coal electrical plant manufacturers on Earth.
Yep.
And they don't care. Oh, and they're also going to build the biggest series of dams in the history of the world.
Yep.
On the borders of Tibet. And they're going to wipe out there's no environmental study. They're wiping out whole swatches of land. Okay?
Ron, they make decisions for the purpose of outcomes.
That's it.
It's not about, they make it for the betterment of the entire country.
The group.
They don't worry about the 0.01%.
Nope, they don't.
They don't care about the land, whose land it is, etc. It's the government's land.
We own it.
And we're going to do this because it's going to improve everyone's sort of state of worth in the country.
It's going to improve lives. Yeah.
And so going to electricity and electric cars, and today they're buying 50% of the 24 million cars that get sold in China are electric.
Yeah.
They're not all plug-in, but when they've developed their own segment, it's called new energy vehicles. So that's hybrid, plug-in hybrid, and electric. Mm-hmm. And so by doing so, they need less oil. But they don't mess around. You have an ICE vehicle, no problem. How much did you pay, Ron? When did you buy it? 10 years ago, you paid $10,000 equivalent Canadian. Here's a check for $10,000. Go buy that EV, use it as a trade-in. How much do you pay? If you want to drive an ICE vehicle, you can only drive it 6 days a week. I'll tell you which day you can't. And you got to pay 2,000 Canadian in registration fees. If you buy an EV, zero registration fees, and you can drive it 7 days a week.
So
this is how you affect change.
Yeah, but you also affect change by building more coal-fired plants than anybody else on Earth.
But they're also building huge nuclear. On the plane
too.
ride back, sitting next to me was an engineer who's a nuclear engineer, and he was there looking at and helping them build nuclear facilities. Are they worried about the interest groups that are concerned about the nuclear
protest groups?
Production? They're not there.
No, they're none. No, they're
because if we produce more electricity, your life will be better. Okay.
So because if a protest group wants to stop traffic in China, they will all be arrested and you'll never see them again. There we go.
Kind of. Yep.
So hey, I'm starting to think about China in this weird way that they're a communist country using capitalistic systems, where I'm starting to think we're supposed to be a capitalist country that's using too many socialistic systems. That's kind of starting to come into my head.
So I've coined it. In China, it's not communism. They are really capitalistic. They are social capitalists, where the capitalism must benefit everyone. All the big companies are state-owned enterprises, where the government owns between 20 and 50%. They may still be public. And if there's a major founder or major operator involved, they can't own more than 5%.
Wow.
So what that does is, there's wealthy, but no one's Bezos. No one can be an Elon Musk and have someone work at the bottom making nothing.
And also, as a communist country, they must have very rigid rent controls, right?
That's the funniest thing. They have no rent controls.
Come on.
You have your house. It's your house, Ronnie. You want to rent that house, you rent it at whatever price you want for whatever period you want and for whatever renewal term.
And if they don't want to pay it, throw them out.
You can do that too.
Wow. So that's communism for you. No rent controls.
Unbelievable. Here we at a time when inflation was at its recent peak, the government came out and Ford said, no, we're going to have 0% increase allowed in rental rates.
So
because we can't hurt the renters.
Yeah, we operate. Canada's devolved into in theory, a capitalist country with massive socialistic influences. So that's where we're at. And unless we change, like I said, I think the Chinese have won. You actually at one point used a better phrase. You said you think they've leapfrogged us.
Yeah, I don't think they've won, because look, it's the race of life continues. It's a continuum.
It's a continuum.
Okay, I think that they are taking steps in what they're doing with technology, where they're looking to leapfrog us, not just pass us, because they're going in a totally different lane. We had this big dream that we would go to electric vehicles, right? The reality is we have so much embedded infrastructure in gas-powered vehicles, the petroleum refineries, the production, the petrol stations, the necessity for increased electricity. All of these things. What about all the mechanics that are unionized that work on the gas cars? Electric cars don't need as many mechanics.
Yeah.
You don't need to change the oil.
Yeah. So
a lot of jobs get shifted and/or don't exist. And so that's going to cause a problem. Whereas I gave you the scenario in China. They said, no, we're going there. Here's what we're doing.
So let's finish on jobs, because, you and I think about real estate because it's such a big impact on a lot of publicly traded companies. And my life is real estate. My life is lending, mortgage lending. So you said two very, very important things at the beginning. It's interest rates and it's unemployment.
Yep.
So if we look at the unemployment side of the equation, we talked about the construction issues that, we have cratered construction in Ontario and British Columbia, still going on in Quebec, still slowing slightly in Alberta, but half the population of the country is in those two provinces, BC and Ontario.
Yep.
And construction is just cratered. So that's an issue. Another issue is, doesn't look like we're going to get out clean on this tariff business. I mean, there's going to be some harm to industries.
Yep. There's
going to be some industries where we got steel telling us they got to close tomorrow unless they get $600 million. So, there's real things happening right now in those key old industries that cars, steel, aluminum, and just in general, if it just becomes harder, it just becomes more difficult to export anything manufactured in Canada into the U.S., we're going to have some changes and some job losses. So we see job losses there. The government keeps telling us we're going to become great defense, giants, and we're going to open up massive trade with Europe, you go to Europe a lot, and I would say they're probably the most protectionist place on earth is Europe.
Yep.
Okay.
Big time.
There's going to be no trade with Europe. Okay. They're not trading with us. Okay. And then
I think they need our natural resources.
Yeah, but that's what we got.
They'd love to take our natural resources, and I think if we can figure that out and build some pipelines to get stuff over there,
100%.
Okay,
100%. Like they'll take our minerals, they'll take our metals, they'll take our potash, everybody will take our natural resources. Nobody's going to want to help us build new manufacturing because they got their own manufacturing issues. All right, and then finally we got AI. And AI is something that I've been talking about for several months because it's hit me like a sledgehammer that this thing is coming at white collar jobs. And there's, you might not be replacing people with AI in your business. I don't think you are.
No.
But you certainly are a big user of AI because I've watched you. Yeah. I've watched you. You talk to your phone, ask it to do ask it to find solutions, look up research.
Yep.
And that at one point that was a human function. Like somebody was doing it for you. Okay.
Yep.
And I think that just and I've talked to business owners in the last few weeks who've talked about just small changes. So we had 8 people quit in the last 6 months. We just didn't replace them. We found ways to have our existing people use AI to take up the slack of that work. Okay, so it's still a developing story, but I don't think it's an employment growth story. AI, I think it's an unemployment story largely. Everybody says, "Oh, no, there'll be new jobs." I just haven't heard of any of them yet, so we haven't found out but there'll be programmers, Ron. Nope, they're laying off programmers like crazy. Okay, so that's what we see at Microsoft, Google, we see all that. So if we have this multi-pronged problem, construction industry, manufacturing, and AI taking away some white-collar jobs, isn't this the potential for the unemployment problem that could be very real in the real estate space?
Yeah. I think that it's going to affect unemployment for sure. But I think what you're going to see is a transition. See, we've gone to a period really since, I would say, maybe it started sometime, I'm going to pinpoint around the 80s, where it was all about going to university. Everyone went to university. All the immigrant families that came here, like my family example, I had to go to university. It's like I was going to be a doctor, I was going to be a lawyer, I was going to do something. I ended up being an accountant. It's okay, but anyway, and so that worked because we needed to fill all the finance jobs, all the paper pushing, all the computerization of the economy.
100%.
But now it's shifting, where you had your children that you wanted to push them to go to university. I'm actually, I go and do guest lectures at the university. I go to U of T, I go to York, and I'm questioning these business students. I'm telling them in first year, I'm saying, why are you here? What are you going to do with this degree? Because if you don't have a goal, if you don't have a plan to be very specialized, and all you're doing is taking something and moving it from one place to another and not adding value, you're going to be Uberized.
So if you're in university for business analysis,
yep,
and you think you're going to spend the rest of your life looking at spreadsheets,
yep,
you're not. You need to bring some unique value spreadsheet to real life.
Yes.
If you aren't, and there's not enough of those.
That's
because
right.
Because if you're just going to school thinking you're going to manipulate a spreadsheet till you retire, you won't be.
The computer's going to manipulate it.
AI is going to do it.
Yeah. So you got to really look at specializing. And that specializing, you're going to be an accountant. It's not just an accountant. You're going to have to be something specialized. Tax. I'm going to work on M&A. I'm going to work on forensics. Something that's going to be different and unique.
And go deep fast.
And go deep and stay with it. And you can't just think that, I'm going to get there and then flip around. I'm going to take this job for a year and that job for a year and that job for 2 years and think you're going to get ahead 4 years later. You're not. You're better off 5 years, 10 years doing one thing. And at the end of it, you want to be able to say at the end of whatever you've done and say, people know you. They know Ron, he's the mortgage guy. Because that's what you've done your whole life. You're an expert at it.
Or if the plumbers and the electricians are slow, learn how to be a nuclear operator.
Yeah. but going back to my point about the children, I think now, while the big swing before was to go to university, I think now it's all about going to blue-collar jobs.
Yes.
And I don't want to call it blue. I'm just going to call it jobs where you are technically adept with your hands. You can actually swing a hammer. You can put up a wall. AI can't do that.
You have a set of skills, unlike Liam Neeson, but you have a set of skills that allow you to do things personally that others can't.
And what you're going to see is those individuals that went to university, they now have money and they maybe have some good finance jobs. They're, 40, 50 years old. Well, they own a house that's got all kinds of problems with it. They don't even know who to call. They don't know. There's a leak. I don't even know where it is. There's water, cracks on the ceiling. How do I fix that? Understanding and knowing how to do that, it's going to be a huge opportunity.
Yeah, your dad and my dad knew how to fix shit.
Oh,
My dad knew how to fix a car. My dad knew how to change the oil. My dad built houses, for Christ's sakes, okay? Amongst other things. He also had a degree in geology, okay?
There you go.
But he could do all that. I don't know what the fuck in a house or a car. I got no clue. Zero. Okay?
My dad's a furniture manufacturer, still working today.
Yep.
Mott Kitchens with my sister, and they're killing it. My dad's still working 5-6 days a week sometimes, and but he taught me as well. I know how to put together furniture. I've learned how to do construction from that, and but it's very unique. That's not the common norm.
But he could do so much. Your dad could change the oil, probably, right?
He probably could.
Not anymore. I get it.
But I would say more. It's his expertise is more in construction and furniture.
So, Anthony, I think what we're going to look at with great apprehension and interest, as you said, great change is also exciting.
That's right.
So we're going to be looking at what could be a fundamental change in the real estate market. Maybe return to something or maybe going back to something that's old fashioned. Like we're gonna have to build a hell of a lot of homes for people who want to live in a home, not just operate it as an investment. We want to live in it, be comfortable in it, stay there. We're not going to have an investment frenzy like we've had for all these years. So change there, and change in jobs, and change in approach to this stuff. And it's going to be really different. I've never felt more certain that things are going to look different in the next 5 years than they have in the last 5 years.
I agree.
It's great having you, Anthony. Thank you. And I am very much looking forward to Anthony's Real Estate Conference coming in October. What's the date in October?
It's October 15th.
Just go to the Veritas website. You will find the way to buy those tickets, and it's going to be a big one.
Yeah, VeritasCorp.com.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ron.
We appreciate it.
You're the best.
If you like the pod, well, don't just sit there. Go to YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and all the other ones and like the pod. And don't forget to subscribe so we can keep being angry at mortgages and swearing about mortgages. Angry Mortgage could use your support.